I'm not interested in being invited to all the D.C. cocktail parties or being the most popular person in Washington. I'm not going there to go along to get along. I want to be your senator to push back against the wokeness and the weakness that is undermining America.
The future U.S. Senator from Missouri, Eric Schmitt, current AG, who Missouri voters overwhelmingly chose last night. This was a landslide. I mean, it was so early on. Cook Political was calling it 45 minutes into votes coming in because the math was such. Eric Schmitt joins us now on the phone. Very busy man now because the fight goes to the general election this November and then onward to D.C. Sir, let me be one of the first to congratulate you on air for a hard-fought victory. Missourians overwhelmingly chose you last night.
Well, thank you, Dana, and thank you, by the way, for your endorsement very early on. I think you recognized what Missouri voters last night, sending a message that they want a proven conservative fighter to take on, D.C., and that's what I've been doing as Attorney General, and it was just a lot of fun last night. It was a raucous crowd, very excited. It's a big seat, it's a 50-50 Senate. And we got to hold Missouri, and I'm incredibly grateful for the faith and the trust of the voters in Missouri.
Yeah, and you hit on something so incredibly important, 50-50 Senate, and even if Republicans win every single Senate seat that they're trying for, it's still going to be either that or just a razor-thin margin, maybe one up, depending on if a seat can flip. I mean, everything is on the line. And when you have assault weapons bans and you have tax increases, looking at this climate change bill that people were able to get Joe Manchin on, we were explaining some of that to listeners just last segment. There's a lot of stuff that it's going to be too close to call, and that's why it's so important for Republicans to maintain control of that Senate. I wanted to ask you, just going into that, how has that affected either your messaging or how you are arranging your priorities after November?
Look, I said last night, my message isn't going to change in the fall because I believe that, taking on this radical left agenda, fighting for people's rights and their liberties. You see all the craziness in D.C. right now, whether it's, with vaccine mandates and the Green New Deal and the war on American energy and assault on our Second Amendment rights. All these things are front and center. And my message isn't going to change because I think those values, those not just Republican values, those are Missouri values. Missourians want somebody that's going to go fight back against this craziness they see, this federal government overreach. They're a couple votes away, and literally two, and one of them, by the way, happens to be Joe Manchin. I can't really rely on that. From packing the court and adding states to the union and federalizing our elections, fundamentally changing this country forever. They are playing for keeps. They're not playing small ball. So you got to have the right people there. And again, I'm just incredibly grateful for the resounding win last night.
We're talking to the future U.S. Senator from Missouri, Eric Schmitt, current AG. And, that Manchin, that vote, too, on getting now this climate change bill going up after that semiconductor chips bill passed, which there was a lot of criticism over that as well. There have been people who have been questioning how things are handled. And I'm not in favor, I'm not in the good graces, I should say, of the establishment. And I think the establishment in your primary went actually for Vicky Hartzler. Everybody that I know, and I don't bid them any ill will, but I always kind of thought it was funny when people said the establishment were going for you because they went for Hartzler in that race. She came in a distant second place. Hearing all that, some of that talk about you and establishment and Mitch McConnell, there was some criticism of Mitch McConnell in the way that this was handled, like a bait and switch with Manchin with the semiconductor bill and then now this climate change bill. I give him credit for getting Trump's judicial agenda done in the second half of his term because we have a conservative Supreme Court because of that. We have a number of federal judges that are Trump appointees because McConnell was able to get them through. Do you think it was naive of leadership to maybe make a deal like that with semiconductors, bait and switch here with this, and now we got this $1 trillion tax bill coming down the line?
Yeah, and I think that sadly there's a few more examples of that, right? The infrastructure bill and the red flag law legislation, which is nothing more than a green light for gun confiscation. And I think, what people want, at least what I heard on the campaign trail this last year, really, is you crisscross Missouri, which is culturally pretty diverse, right? You've got the Boot Heels, very different than Southwest Missouri, and Jefferson County, where you hail from, is different than Clay County in the Kansas City area. And it's a great cross-section of this country. And what they really want are people who are going to make independent decisions, not go to Washington and change and fight for them. And so one of the things I would tell people, which is the God's honest truth, I am not interested in being the most popular person in Washington. I am not interested in being invited to all the cocktail parties. I'm not going there to go along to get along. My job is to fight for the people. And you see these things happening in Washington, and people can't believe it. And they're beside themselves. You see this woke indoctrination in our schools, this Green New Deal. And by the way, it's important to listen to the language, Dana. They are no longer calling this climate change. It is a climate emergency, right? And why are they using that language?
They don't want to make the case in Congress.
They don't want to make the case in Congress. They can weaponize these agencies. And one of the things that is really important to me is dismantling the administrative state. Because what happens now is Congress doesn't have to vote on these tough things. Make Congress vote on this stuff, because you wouldn't see half this nonsense actually see the light of day if they actually had to vote on it. But they sort of outsource this stuff to these agencies, whether it's OSHA for the vaccine mandate, where they were going to force a medical procedure on 80 million Americans. I mean, this was an agency created to make sure forklifts beep when they back up, right? Not to do this stuff. So we just have to be, I think, just unafraid to say no more.
Right.
And President Trump had something called a 2-for-1 rule, right? If you were going to propose a new rule, you got to pull back 2. But Joe Biden just got rid of that. We ought to have something in statute and make it 10-for-1. Why 2-for-1? We just got to get rid of this unaccountability.
I agree with that. I'm happy to hear you say that, because that's one of the first things Trump did when he got into office, was establish that rule. And I thought that, and he also was amending rules of engagement. I thought, these are two good things that I like. Talking with Eric Schmitt, the future U.S. attorney from the state of Missouri, my home state. I saw some people congratulating you last night, sir. I saw Billy Long. He was a class act. He came right out of the gate and said he can't wait to work with you and helping you, work hard for Missourians. Did you hear from POTUS? Because I know there's a very interesting endorsement that happened the day before that. I mean, the right Eric won. I know there were a few on the ballot. But did you hear from 45 at all? Did he call you, congratulate you?
Absolutely, he did. Yep, I got a call from the president, and I was very grateful for that phone call. And he was thrilled and just wished me the best. And not to get into too many of the details, but was excited about the opportunity to take the Senate back. And I've been, very clear. I mean, we need to move an America First agenda. Yeah. And I'm going to be an America First fighter in the Senate. And I was very grateful for his call. And we knew the numbers were headed the right way. The margins in certain counties, the things you look for felt really great. But, to win by 24 points in a crowded race like that is just,
I've never seen anything like that.
And I'm just so appreciative.
I've never seen anything like that in Missouri.
I'm just really appreciative.
I wanted to ask you too, and I don't want to cause headaches for you before you even get into the Senate, but I know McConnell didn't endorse you, and I know that you haven't. I mean, you've been keeping your head down and working hard as Attorney General, because you've been in the courtroom fighting Joe Biden on everything from mask mandates to injection mandates and Second Amendment stuff, all that. But I didn't hear anything about McConnell calling you to congratulate you. Am I correct on that?
Well, no, I called for new leadership. I was very vocal about that. We need new leadership in the Senate, and I think now, we've got a Democrat. You've got this Jack Danforth. You've got a third-party candidate. I mean, we're in a really good position heading into the general, and we just got to win. We just got to win. We got 3 months. Missouri has a late primary, of course, so the general's just around the corner, and so I'm just going to work as hard as I can. It was just great on a personal level to be on that stage with my family and supporters. It's just, and I told the story. Look, I came from a working class neighborhood. My dad, my grandfather came back from World War II, was a butcher. My dad was a butcher, then worked at Anheuser-Busch and 7 days a week in the midnight shift. And that's my background. And I'm proud of my working class roots. And I'm going to go to Washington and fight for working class families, because they deserve to have these opportunities in the greatest country in the history of the world. And what we see happening right now is this assault on people's liberties and the opportunity for the next generation. That is what we have to keep front and center.
Absolutely.
And I think what it means to be an America First candidate.
Absolutely. Did you hear from the other Eric in the race? I know that there was no concession made last night. Did you hear? Did Greetens call you and congratulate you and concede?
That did not happen. So we're moving along here, and I'm confident. And I said, look, I'm appreciative for everybody that voted for me, and for the people who didn't vote for me, and ask them to join in this effort, because the seat's so important, and we got to take this country back. There
you go. And you can definitely have to focus on that, because now, as you said, Missouri's primary is late. Talking to Eric Schmitt, the next U.S. attorney from Missouri, current AG, the primary is late. Doesn't give you a lot of time to get your feet back on the ground and then head right towards the general. I don't like to get over my skis with stuff, but I feel pretty confident about your chances going into November, just because of the way issues have been tracking in Missouri. And as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit. I mean, people are worried about the recession. They're worried about the prices of energy. They're worried about, all of these medical mandates. And that's one of the reasons, because they saw you out there fighting all this stuff, and they saw you were also getting results. So clearly, that emboldened them and motivated them to vote for you. What are you hearing from voters across the country going into November? Because, I know that the House is one thing, the Senate's another. But I'm just curious, what are they telling you? What is the most pressing issue for Missourians right now?
I mean, clearly people are feeling the pinch, right? And this inflation has affected all aspects of the economy, prices at the pump, prices at the grocery store. And it's all self-inflicted by this Biden administration. I mean, they declared war on American energy on day one, canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, eliminated the leasing offshore and on federal lands for oil exploration and gas. And now you got Biden going to Saudi Arabia, begging for oil and shipping strategic petroleum reserves to China. This is crazy, and people see it. And I think on day one, when Republicans take the majority, and again, I think what's important here, and what I tell people, is it's not enough to get the majority back. You got to have the right people there, proven fighters who are going to take on the establishment and move an agenda forward that's going to help real people. And, we need to open up and be energy dominant again. I mean, we were under President Trump. We should be we should be exporting energy to our friends and allies across the world, and including being completely energy independent and dominant here at home. And we can do all of that. That's the big misnomer here, Dana, is that somehow that's unattainable. We can do it. We absolutely have everything we need to be completely energy independent. That's a national security issue, in addition to a supply issue that will bring down inflation. We got to stop spending. I mean, that's the other thing. I support a balanced budget amendment. I think people get frustrated, members of both parties, who spend like there's no tomorrow. And we have to pump the brakes on this out of control spending, because it's affecting people. It's irresponsible. And we're, stealing from future generations. It's wrong.
Yes. And man, what a time to enter the Senate. What a time to be in the fray. Eric Schmitt, the future.
Dana, I appreciate that, because here's the thing. We are entering, I view, the most consequential decade in our republic since the Civil War, because these are very big questions we're being asked about. Things like, do we believe in individual rights? And do we believe that we're still the greatest country in the history of the world? All of these big questions, these are not small things. And so I'm ready for that fight, and I'm going to be the voice for Missourians in Washington.
There you go. Sure. And I know everyone else who's affected by your vote in the Senate around the country is grateful for that safe seat now too. Eric Schmitt, the website Schmitt for Senate, the future U.S. Senator from the state of Missouri. Congratulations on your victory last night, and we're going to watch as this race unfolds and you barrel on towards November. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dana, for everything, and Chris too. Thank you.
Of course. Take care.